Okay, so I've been using the POCO X4 Pro 5G for a few weeks, not only at home but most of the time on the road, using my 5G SIM card and service nearly every day. And after putting it through paces, I can confidently say that the X4 Pro 5G is worth skipping this year. And mostly the reason why is the overall package this phone offers, especially when compared to the predecessor, which is the power-packed POCO X3 Pro, despite being stuck in 4G. However, if you have no other choice but to purchase this phone for whatever reason, let me share with you what I learned after using the X4 Pro as my daily driver. But before we get started, here's a short message from today's sponsor. CDKeyOffer specializes in delivering cheap and legitimate software and game codes. If you ever need a Windows 10 Pro or a Microsoft Office key, you can buy one at a very cheap price. To do so, just visit CDKeyOffer.com. Search for Windows 10 and choose a suitable copy for you, but in my case, I always go for a professional copy. Before making a payment, make sure to type in the RC20 code for an exclusive 30% off discount. After that, you can choose your preferred payment method. You will receive the code via an email that redirects you to the website of CDKeyOffer, and from there you can get your Windows 10 key. Since my Windows 10 copy is already activated, I just can simply change my product key to the new one that I just bought. If you need a Microsoft Office key, the steps are pretty much the same. Just make sure to type in the RC20 code for an exclusive 30% off discount. CDKeyOffer provides permanently valid keys with 30 days of return and exchange period. You can check out more deals in the video description below. So like the rest of our reviews, let's start with the design. So the X4 Pro 5G still carries the same design language as its predecessor, which is an IP53 rated build with a complete set of connections including the headphone jack, the microSD slot, and the IR blaster. But like most phones today, the design went from curvy edges to squared corners and frames. Though the new form factor adds a bit of chunk when handling the phone, it's noticeably lighter than the X3 Pro, despite the bigger camera hump on the back. Speaking of that hump, this one is a huge camera visor. I don't totally hate the design, but I feel like it's unnecessary. It is basically another piece you need to take care of since it's more prone to breaking if you accidentally drop this phone. But for the finish on the back, I think it's unique. To me, it resembles stage lights from concerts and it's just fun looking at them moving at different angles. But because the form factor is now squared, reaching the edges and corners of the display is a bit harder than on a curved phone. But in exchange, it makes the phone easier to grip even with one hand. The Dolby Atmos speakers are still plenty loud and plenty good to listen to, as well as the microphone that's still solid at this price point, giving you good depth with little to no teeny effect. At this point, I think Xiaomi has mastered the way of providing decent speakers and mic quality at every price point imaginable. But one of the highlights of the X4 Pro is the battery. The 5000 mAh battery is slightly smaller now, but still massive for what it is. But on the flip end, it's now backed by a 67-watt fast charger. Xiaomi advertises this phone to reach up to 70% in just 22 minutes, while up to 100% in just 41 minutes. And I have to say, those numbers feel a bit misleading. First of all, this phone fails to charge properly when you're charging from a dead battery, meaning the screen is dead and you just plugged in the charger. The phone would charge but at noticeably slow speeds, and the charging screen indicator would just turn on and off. But once you turn on the screen and charge the phone, everything seems to work just fine. The catch though is that I never hit the advertised speed by Xiaomi. More often than not, I was hitting 100% at the 1 hour mark. So that's more likely in line with the 33-watt phones of Xiaomi, which shouldn't be happening since this charger is twice the rated capacity. For the screen feels larger than your typical 6.67 inches for some reason. Maybe because it's now housed in a square body, but the screen is definitely one of the best things about the X4 Pro. It's plenty bright at 700 nits, making it easily viewable under direct sunlight, but it doesn't support HDR playback on Netflix or YouTube. Not a big deal to most people, but something worth pointing out. This is an AMOLED panel with 120Hz refresh rate, so colors are very colorful and the animations are fluid and snappy. Well, that is until you push this phone to its capabilities. The Snapdragon 695 chip is both a downgrade and an upgrade. It upgrades the modem from 4G to 5G, but the raw performance of the chip has been downgraded significantly. This may not be a problem to people who are not looking to game on a budget phone, but fans of the POCO X series might be disappointed with this move given how the X3 Pro came out with a bang. But nevertheless, the chipset is slightly faster than the Snapdragon 720G of last year, but not by much. It's hard to see the improvements when it comes to general performance, as my experience with this phone has been basically identical to the Redmi Note 10 Pro of last year. I would say though that MIUI 13 for POCO, which is still based on Android 11, needs some optimizing when it comes to being more fluid than the previous version. I'm seeing a lot of frame drops in the UI, such as when closing and opening apps and scrolling through social media feeds, but one thing that really caught my attention was the way the phone, or rather the animations, slowed down when both mobile data and hotspot were turned on. It didn't reach the point where the phone was unusable, and the phone didn't overheat either, but the performance felt sluggish with those things turned on. Gaming wise, this won't give you the best experience, and most games out there wouldn't definitely hit 120 frames. At best, you're looking at 40 to 50 frames in low to medium settings, just like when I played PUBG New State here. Overall, this chip feels a bit more conservative than the Snapdragon 720G. I mean, I never felt this phone overheat, whether it's gaming or using a mobile data connection. I'm actually impressed with the way Xiaomi handled the battery consumption of this phone. I was averaging 5 to 6 hours of screen time without charging for 2 days. And the best part, most of my notifications were coming in without delay. You will still notice some notifications hitting this phone once you turn on the screen, but at the least, the software isn't as aggressive as it once was on the Redmi Note 10 Pro. And finally, the cameras. So last year, the X3 Pro's camera performance was right in line with the POCO X3 NFC. Even though it was using only a 48 megapixel main sensor, it was capable of recording up to 4K video, which gives you, the user, plenty of details of the scene you're capturing. Now, the X4 Pro has upgraded the sensor from 48 to 108 megapixel, while the rest stays the same, such as the 8 megapixel ultra-wide, a 2 megapixel macro, and the 2 megapixel... oh wait, there's no depth sensor here. We're now looking at 3 sensors in the back. So basically, these cameras should be better than last year's, right? Yes and no. The photos did get some improvements, such as the detail quality and accuracy in colors, but on the video side of things, there's a significant downgrade. With the chipset lacking support for 4K recording, the highest possible resolution you can do here is 1080p at a mere 30 frames. It would be fine if the quality wasn't all that bad, but 1080p on a phone of this caliber means smudgy details and just underwhelming video quality. Even the stabilization needs some working, whether it's the main or ultra-wide camera. For the 16 megapixel selfie camera, it's not all that bad. My selfies tend to produce little saturation, but the dynamic range is impressive when you activate the HDR toggle. Now, taking a look at the price of the POCO X4 Pro, it has received a small price bump, but that small increase puts this phone nearly as expensive as the POCO F3, which has better specs than this phone, albeit with so-so cameras. So at this price point, it's kinda hard to recommend the X4 Pro, especially when yesterday's devices are still good today and are cheaper to buy today. But if you have no choice but to purchase this phone, you just have to settle for that camera. That's it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and drop a sub or a like if you feel supporting the channel. And as always, stay safe.